Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Myths and Stories. Tonight, we are continuing our tellings of the history of the Awoken people in Destiny 2. We are going to be focusing tonight on the Queen's Wrath position, as well as the escapades of Uldren Sov prior to us ever meet our player guardian, ever meeting him in game, and kind of see where his issues really started in the Soul system, uh, outside of his issues with Mara already. Our last episodes, we went over kind of the Awoken first entering the solar system and the division between the two, where some went to Earth immediately to help, and others stayed in the reef to build up their own society before offering help elsewhere, leading into the reef wars and the battles between the Awoken and the Fallen, including Mara saving the city from the fleet of millions of Fallen in the House of Wolves, and taking over and subjugating most of them.
As one would do with a force that they have conquered or beaten into submission.
So tonight we're going to be talking about Sheer Ido and Petrovenge to begin with. Not going to be starting immediately with a book chapter. The remaining lore cards around these two figures at this point in time are a little more scattered. We're going to be reading a lot of D1 Grimoire and lore entries from particular weapons. I think all of the weapons and armor that we're talking about are still available in game via the Dreaming City, or it's an exotic. So if you're interested in finding this stuff for yourself, you can go farm it if you so choose.
Yeah. And you can always read the lore entries from guns that you don't own as well. If you ever go into collections and just find a gun that looks like a Dreaming City aesthetic or something like that, it'll have some Dreaming City lore on it. And Myth and I looked through a bunch of this stuff, and a lot of it's not too pertinent. There's some high points in some of it, and one of them we're going to start off with tonight. But yeah, any of the lore entries that we grab that aren't specifically from the lore books are from weapons and armor found throughout Destiny 2. So yeah, make sure to read your armor before you dismantle it and get more shards for it.
Yep. And we actually had this suggestion by somebody on Twitter, and I've been trying to do it going forward. I'm going to be including the lore book and chapter when relevant, or the weapon or armor in chronological order of our readings in the description of every episode. So if you don't quite catch what our source is for a particular portion, that should be available. I actually started that a couple episodes ago, but it should be available going forward to find those yourself if you are interested.
Look at us, all fancy and
I know.
professional.
Look at
I like
that.
it.
But tonight we are going to go ahead and start with the legendary weapon Sleepless, which is a Dreaming City weapon. And this tells us a little bit about a premonition that Sheer Ido was having. We know before she had had premonitions of her own death, which she told Mara about. And post that, what would have otherwise been her death that was prevented by Mara, she has a premonition of a different sort that is pretty interesting. So, this one goes like this. Sheer snorts and coughs as she wakes herself up from a sound sleep. You are drooling, Mara says. She's perched in a divan nearby. There are books open all around her. She has dog-eared dozens of pages. I was dreaming, Sheer says, wiping her mouth off with the back of her hand. I saw you on a great black triangle. and you split it in two with your bare hands. Mara responds. And I was dead, I think? She cracks her neck with a deliciously loud pop. Or trapped? Like in a maze, but pretty close to figuring my way out. Mm-hmm. Sheer stands up to stretch. She doesn't mind that Mara's not listening. Let her read. And there was another woman with you. On the triangle, Mara murmurs. Yeah. She was helping. Then your brother showed up, and she shakes out her arms, frowning thoughtfully. The dream is already fading. He said, Tropea? Or maybe it was tropical. Anyway. And that's quite abruptly where that one ends.
Myth and I have discussed this one quite a bit in the past, and there's a lot of things in here that I thought. Now, again, this you got to remember when this weapon came out. This was a Dreaming City weapon, so this we're talking Forsaken, the expansion Forsaken for Destiny 2, and a lot of events that obviously we've played through now, like the adventures on Europa, not Shadow Throne, the Throne World, Savathun's Throne World. Some of these things hadn't existed, so Myth and I had kind of gone back and forth on like what some of these things were in this dream. And like the first thing that comes to mind is the pyramid, right, standing on top of a black triangle, which seems to me to be like a reference to a pyramid ship. And then of course Sheer mentions that Mara had split the thing in two with her bare hands. So a broken pyramid ship with Mara atop it. Now, again, this is a dream that Sheer is having, so dreams are some of the hardest things to interpret. But then she talks about another woman standing on it, and that Sheer herself was dead or trapped or something. And so Myth and I had a couple of ideas on what this could have meant. This could have meant, maybe the other woman up there was the Exo Stranger. Maybe it was Eris Morn, because Eris has a real good rapport with the Queen. Maybe it was the Player Guardian. Who knows? Maybe it was Ikora. There's plenty of female characters throughout Destiny's lore that could have been up there with her. And then Sheer being trapped or dead. When we play through the dungeon, the Shattered Throne, there's a statue of Sheer there, and she talks about "I will return" and da 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 da. And so, like, is she actually dead? Is she trapped in the Ascendant plane? Is what has happened to Sheer in this dream state? And then it goes on to talk about her brother, talking about tribute or tropical or something. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what to Uldren would be a tribute or a tropical or whatever? And then she just kind of shakes the whole thing off. So this is a very interesting lore entry here, I think.
No, absolutely. I am personally of the belief that this is referencing events that we still have not seen in game yet.
I think you're right.
My has no real backing other than conjecture theory about this particular one, is that this event is, if we're to take it literal, I see this being Mara, and I personally think Eris is the most likely. But I see this being Mara defending against the invasion of the Witness when the Witness is actually in the system. I think that's when this stuff is going to happen. Knowing what we know now.
Full on prediction again.
Yeah, full on prediction. I'm staking absolutely nothing on this. Because again, all conjecture.
Staking your reputation as a content creator, damn it.
I guess so. But I can see this scene playing out as in the Witness is it finally here invading the Sol system. Maybe this is during Lightfall. And Mara is defending, and she, we've seen her do incredible things before. She may literally cleave a pyramid in half. with
I,
whatever
I
powers
want to
she
see that.
has. I want to see it too.
I want to see her do that, just straight up karate chop, just Kya! The whole pyramid snaps in half. That'd be awesome.
That's right. Karate Kid got nothing on this. Uh,
Right.
but regardless, I think she's going to rebuke the initial invasion from the witness. Perhaps that's what gives us time to try and fend them off over the course of the season or whatnot. And I think that whatever season or expansion that happens in is when Shiraido will return, because I do not believe she's dead. And we will see some of the evidence to that actually in the next couple entries that we read here.
I was going to say there's a lot of entries coming up tonight that I think I don't think she's dead either. Like,
yeah,
we haven't seen her in game yet. We as the player have never had a chance to interact with her personally, except for with the statue that's in the Shattered Throne. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think she's dead.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So the other interesting little bit here is Tropia.
I was going to say, what's the deal with the Uldren stuff?
Yeah, so supposedly what she thinks Uldren, or I more likely Crow now, says is
sure.
Tropia. And Tropia has two distinct definitions and origins that I could find. There's Tropia, which has an ancient Greek origin, which was a place. It was a town of ancient Arcadia. That apparently it is one of those lost cities that has never been located. So that might be kind of interesting.
That'd be kind of cool.
Like maybe we stumble upon this ancient ruin of this Tropia place for whatever reason, whatever the narrative reason is. But if we look at it from a Latin perspective versus the Greek translation, it has a Latin translation which is to mean a trophy or victory memorial. So that would be a little more metaphor, I suppose, but I also don't know how that would fit into this particular scene.
I would think that would be more of that would play more of Crow's character, right? Like, he measures himself by what he survives. And so if he's saying something about a trophy or something, then maybe he's survived something, and that is his trophy. He has survived to see Mara cleave this thing in two. Like, maybe that's the trophy or something. Or maybe Uldren is pointing at the cleaving pyramid saying trophy or something. Like, I don't know. There's, again, this is a very open-ended thing that has a lot of hidden meanings, I feel like.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He could be saying that, like, the act of doing that, of destroying a pyramid, is a mark of their victory. Now, if we want to get really metaphorical, perhaps the cleaving of the pyramid is a metaphor, an allegory for the darkness or the witness itself. Perhaps that vision is of them actually winning against the witness as a whole. In which case, then victory would absolutely work there.
Right. No, 100%. That's kind of like the ultimate goal. I don't know if that's like the ultimate goal in Destiny, but it seems like that's the ultimate goal, is to just stop the witness from unmaking the universe.
The goal for now, at least, yeah.
That seems to be the goal for now. So yeah, I could definitely see that as being the trophy. As we've beaten the darkness. We have finally, and so now again, I'm gonna kind of rewind it back a little bit to the two people or the woman standing on top of her. If it's beating the darkness, then I think the two most viable people that would be up there with her would be Erisborn or the Stranger. But I think narratively, I think we've finished off the Stranger's story. I think she is just happens to be playing along with us type thing at the current point in time in the game right now. the stranger is just she's just there. She's just helping facilitate the use of stasis and that.
Yeah,
So
at the current point in the game, I will agree. I think the stranger's going to have a larger role to play going forward. But just based on what the interactions we've seen and the relationships between characters that we know about, I agree. I think the most likely person is Eris Morn standing with Mara and Crow, because we know Eris has a long-standing friendship with Mara, and over this season especially has established herself as someone that Crow can turn to for advice and support. So I think that makes sense for her to be the one there.
well, there you go. We also need an answer to that stupid little fish thing that we never got. And the only other acknowledgement has been a recent lore entry of Drifter going, "What the hell are you?"
Yeah.
I want my stupid little fish ghost. That's all I want.
The fact they acknowledged it in the lore anywhere.
That's even worse.
Well, that makes me think we're going to get something soon.
That I don't know if that makes it better or worse, but in my head that makes it even worse, because now the people in game are even questioning Bungie. Like, what are you doing? Give us our fish thingy. All right. Well, that finishes out our discussion on the Sleepus lore entry. What's our next
Yeah, so
entry?
Continuing and kind of concluding for now the story of Sheer Ido, we're going to turn to the Wish Ender exotic bow. Now I don't know if the exotic quest for Wish Ender exists in game anymore, or if this is purely just something you get from the kiosk now.
I can confirm it does not.
Okay.
We have Tian Italiano to help clarify that. If you do have the quest entry, like, you can still do the quest, but I think it bugged out on him when you go to pick it up, pick up the Wish Ender from the statue. I can't remember if it did or if it didn't. I think he had to sit there for a while, and then it finally just auto completed, because part of it wanted you to go back to the Tangled Shore, which doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So can't exactly do a quest when the location doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. No, that makes things difficult. Regardless, this is one of those weapons that really I'm of two minds of, because its story and its appearance and like its pedigree, like who used it, and its significance to the universe is probably one of my favorite in the game, period. And I have a soft spot for bows in general, being a archer myself. But
Olympic recurve archer.
Olympic as in the style, not as in competed. There's a big difference.
I like it.
But the utility of this particular weapon means that almost no one is ever using it, including myself. But as far as everything else, like it's wonderful.
It is.
But so, in case you hadn't picked up on it, Wish Ender is the longbow of Sheer Ido. It is the bow that she had to wrap around her entire body to string. That Mara apparently enjoyed watching happen. So the lore card for Wish Ender tells us about the last moments of Sheer Ido, and it goes like this. Sheer Ido stood slow, joint snapping, second to none but the Sovs themselves, and stood straight-backed, sharp-sighted, pleased to skewer enemies at any difference. Sheer Ido listened close, head cocked, arrow knocked, listened to her queen's layered lies, and heard only the truths, as endless courtly complaints flowed around them like the mist of Devalia. Sheer Ido watched shadows wind, warp widen, watched surveillance feeds encrypted, snaps the weapon hand of every woman and man who wished an audience. Sheer Ido swore with revelation righteous fury, betrayed, swore an oath to rise again. Sheer Ido drew, loosed, fell, lost. And the little bit of flavor text on this one is a quote from Sheer, presumably to Mara, saying, "Don't fret. It's a simple expedition. We'll be back before lunch." Presumably, that is what she said to Mara before leaving on this expedition that appears to have ended with her falling.
And I think it's important there at the end that it doesn't say killed, it doesn't say dead, it says lost.
Yes.
And that was something that Myth and I, we were really sure that something was going to come of that in the season of the Lost, just because it had the same name. We were like, Myth and I were convinced that Sheer Ida was coming back that season.
Yeah, and we were not correct.
we were a little bummed.
Yeah, I felt like I really thought it was going to happen. It all kind of lined up with the
it did.
The naming convention, and yeah, whatever.
I was so ready for it.
But I wanted, because this lore card is very jumbled. And even I tried to put some pauses in there where I thought they were, but if you go and read this yourself, it is one giant run-on sentence.
Almost as if it's like a thought happening, right? Like it's just a continuous thought happening. Because that's the way I take it, is like this is a thought that is happening inside Shiraido's head.
So I want to break it down a little bit, or as much as we can. So I think what we might be looking at here is two thoughts being mixed. I think one of them would be along the lines of Shiraido stood second to none but the Sovs themselves, straight-backed, sharp-sighted, pleased to skewer enemies at any distance. So she was the Queen's Wrath at this point, and she was second in command in the Awoken, the Awoken Society. Like, only Mara and Uldren had authority over her. And then the second sentence, if we try and dejumble it here, Shiraido listened close to her queen's layered lies and heard only the truths as endless courtly complaints flowed around them like the mists of Devalia. So she stood, as any bodyguard does, she stood in the throne room looking for, signs of a threat against the queen. But it was a lot of listening to people complain at Mara about XYZ things that they needed. And her listening to Mara tell them in Mara's very, political, mysterious way, the maybe lies and half-truths that would, sedate that particular person for a while. And she, at least, could decipher what Mara was actually saying. What was under all these layers of fluff to know the actual intention Mara was trying to communicate.
Man.
The next bit here, if we try and de-scramble, Shiraido watched the weapon hand of every woman and man who wished an audience. So again, she was just protecting Mara. Shiraido swore with revelation, righteous fury, and oath to rise again. Presumably, whatever it was that caused her to be lost or to fall, she swore then and there that she would come back. And now this bit is interesting. So if we, I guess let's back up. If we go back and use the bits of this dialogue that I haven't already said, and we try and piece those together into something, we can say Shiraido stood slow, joints snapping, sharp-sighted, pleased to skewer any enemy at any distance. So some of those words are the same, but I think it's talking about two different events. In one case, we're talking about her in the courtroom, listening to people coming through and the daily dronings of being a ruler and having to make decisions. And in the other one, especially knowing she went on an expedition of some sort, I'm getting the image personally of her like stood slow, joints snapping, sharp-sighted, pleased to skewer enemies at any distance, of her like prowling through a forest or something, like
Sure.
on the hunt in some way.
Well, and I was going to ask, could this be the same event, but from two different points of view?
Possibly, yeah. Though I don't know that all of it translates if we're assuming it's happening in the courtroom.
Sure, sure. If it's like what you're describing there, where it's like a huntress on the prowl, like it. Yeah, you can be metaphorically on the prowl in the courtroom.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm watching those people over there, and I'm watching these people over there. Just like this is like the military mind in the back of my head, going, okay, I'm surveying the room, I'm looking for threats, I'm kind of on the hunt, but not in that sense of like, I've been crouched down in a sniper pose for, you know 6 weeks on end, and now I'm kind of standing up and kind of unfolding myself as I'm creaking and popping and standing up. So yeah, I don't know. I like both variations here. I like the idea of this being the same event from two points of view, or two separate events that are kind of playing at the same time in Shear's head.
Yeah. I think the next bit solidifies more the like out hunting something for me personally. The Sheer Ido listened close, head cocked, arrow knocked.
Oh yeah.
So she has an arrow knocked in the bow. She's kind of got her head tilted, like listening intently for something. And then Sheer Ido watched shadows wind, warp and widen, watched surveillance feeds. So she was she was watching the shadows. She was very maybe paranoid.
It sounds like
but
it.
was very aware of stuff going on, always watching these surveillance feeds. In whatever form those may have taken. And then the next bit is sandwiched between Sheer Ido swore with revelation, righteous fury, an oath to rise again. Between those two statements, between fury and swore, is just a line of the word betrayed, essentially copy and pasted over and over and over again. It looks like maybe like 10 times.
I was fixing to say, you said maybe 10,
2, 3,
and now
4,
I'm questioning
5, 6, 7, 8.
Is
it's
it?
8 times. It's 8 times.
Oh damn!
I
I was hoping it would either be 7 for Bungie or 9 for like, okay.
Yeah. But so she has this long string of just betrayed, betrayed, betrayed. And the fact that it's with revelation, so she's discovering something, whatever this something was, she felt extremely betrayed by it. And presumably that betrayal is what then led to her falling. We really don't have any indication of what that betrayal might have been.
Right. If it had been 9, we would have had a
that would have been a whole other
had
thing.
An inkling.
But regardless, something did not go correctly on this expedition, and it led to the presumed death of Sheer Ido, and she was lost. So that brings us to a not a lore entry. This is actually a bounty. If you do some of the field assignment bounties in the Dreaming City, which are usually given to you by Shirochi, and if you haven't done them, I definitely suggest doing them if you're interested in the area, because they're really cool, where they have you go to an area and then Shirochi actually gives you history about the thing that is in that area. And you get some really interesting information.
Very, very, very fun way to have a story told to you throughout the just in the sense of a exploration area, right? Like
Oh yeah.
to have a patrol area, and then now you have this Techian, this tech witch that's literally telling you the history of why, why is this rock the way it is? Why is this bridge here? Why is this building here? What is this giant machine up here? Like it's a really, really cool way to have a story told through gameplay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I still think this is one of like the best examples they have had of doing just that, making these bounties feel meaningful, or not bounties, patrols, feel meaningful and feel very organic to the location that they're in. And they have definitely toyed with some of this in Shadowkeep with Toland on the Moon, but just they haven't felt quite as complete as what they did in the Dreaming City, at least not to me.
Sure.
But this one in particular is a field assignment mission to the Harbinger's Seclude, specifically the Spiral Tree within the Harbinger's Seclude, which is a lost sector, I believe. And Shirochi gives us this little bit of dialogue about this tree. She says, "This chamber was refashioned in honor of Shir Ido, the first queen's wrath, when she was found dead. She was a fearsome warrior in her own right, the only Awoken to ever survive an Aphelion attack, and a skilled hunter of traitorous Ahamkara. It's taboo to carve a statue for someone who still lives, and so sometimes we will plant trees instead. The queen planted this one herself after one of our best warriors went missing. Would that we were all so lucky." So the implication for Sheer here is that she has this entire chamber dedicated to her. She was seen amongst the Awoken people as a fearsome warrior, the only Awoken to ever survive an Aphelion attack. No, we do not know what an Aphelion is yet.
I was going to say, there's Aphelion's Rest is one of the lost sectors, so it's got to be something big, right?
Yeah, the Aphelion's Rest, from what I'm remembering off the top of my head, is where Sheer killed that Aphelion. But they never say what it is, other than just some terrifying thing.
Could it have been like a worm or an Ahamkara?
I feel like if it were an Ahamkara, they would have just called it that.
Oh, sure.
Worm maybe, but again, maybe they would have just called it that. It seems like an Aphelion might be something completely different.
Okay. Some type of space monster.
Yeah. Some you can trudge up whatever is the space monster of your nightmares, and that's what an Aphelion is until they tell us otherwise.
I like it.
The other thing here, though, that I think is important to note is they say she was a skilled hunter of traitorous Ahamkara. Presumably, then, the Awoken were in contact with Ahamkara outside of Riven, and had dealings with them in some way that would classify some of them as being traitorous, as betraying the Awoken or betraying their agreement with the Awoken in some fashion.
Sure.
So perhaps that is what Sheer was hunting when she was killed, or when she was lost, I guess.
Well, and there's I guess I have two things here. Could this have been at the beginning of that entry particularly? Does it says that they found the body of Sheer, right?
And that's actually in the very next entry that we're going to talk about.
Okay, then. Well, I'll hold that thought for a second then. So then rewinding to my second thought, which is now my first thought. Could this have been part of the Great Ahamkara hunts?
Unclear. Certainly possible. But not certain if Sheer was taking part in the hunts at the same time that the Guardians were. It's hard to know with timelines not being, with not having good landmark moments described during the time that Sheer Sheer, died to compare to. It's not impossible. Certainly the city would know about the existence of the Awoken at the Reef of this point because of the Reef Wars.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be as big of a secret anymore, and they maybe did reveal themselves to take part in the hunts to some degree. Well, and
Because that was something.
actually, now that I say that, I think that was the case because I believe that's where Shax met Sheer Ido the first time.
That's what I was going to ask. I remember that Shax and Sheer knew each other because Shax has a pet name for Sheer. He refers to her as the Tempest, right?
That's right. And that is on the Recluse gun, I do believe, which, despite being a terror for other reasons during the time it was in the game, I say it actually has a good little bit of lore to it. We might as well read it because it is relevant to this part here. So this is from the Recluse gun, and it goes like this. An arrow whined out of nowhere. It drove through his shoulder, penetrating his armor as though it were paper, not playsteel. No enemies on his tracker. So then, where? The second arrow hit harder than the first, straight through his other shoulder, skewering the joint. He twisted his head, saw the arrowhead protruding through his pauldron, chuckled humorously, looked through the trees. The asteroids of the reef did not afford many hiding places, even those which had been terraformed to support plants and animals. So the shooter had to be... The third arrow penetrated his thigh, and he laughed aloud. Transmat? His ghost suggested, a quiet voice in his mind. No, they started this. I'll finish it. Unable to lift any of his own weapons in defense, concerned that he might compromise his ghost if he made any attempt to heal himself with the light, Lord Shax began to limp toward the shooter's likeliest vantage. This was the work of a ballista, he supposed. Dark Age weaponry. Nothing else could hit so hard. As he tottered along, an awoken woman in the near distance seemed to rise from the forest floor. She cast aside her camouflage and stood straight. He stopped to gawk. She was as tall as he was, if not taller. Her bow, just a bow, an ordinary bow, was certainly even taller. You're trespassing on Awoken territory, Guardian, she called to him. Declare yourself. Who are you? He asked, astounded. I am the Queen's Wrath. Declare yourself, I will not ask again. She raised her bow, drawing it to its full capacity. He watched in amazement. It was just a bow, and she was just an ordinary awoken woman. And yet... You are a tempest, he replied humbly. In the next instant, she killed him. It was the start of a beautiful friendship.
I can't, see, some of these lore entries you can't help but laugh at. Like you just, I could, like you could just see it, right? Like you could, like every Guardian knows who Shax is. Like the yes, Guardian, throw more grenades, and he's just like, this woman, who the hell are you? Like. And she just stayed there, don't worry about who the hell I am. Who the hell are you? And he's just like, what the hell is going on? And she's just like, don't worry about what the hell is going on. You declare yourself, damn it. But you're just a swap. arrow through the shoulder, arrow to the knee, arrow to the face, dead. Yeah. Shax revives. Hi, how you doing?
So
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, so that entry, I'm glad we thought of that one and decided to bring it up.
I'm glad you remember where it was.
So that entry, I think, is important. It shows just how intimidating and powerful Sheer Ido was, who was not a light bearer, mind you. She was a just mortal Awoken that had the capacity to incapacitate Shax with what he thought was a ballista before he saw her.
Just an ordinary Awoken woman, right? Like that's
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's she was a badass. She was an absolute terror. And for her to I think that kind of like what you were saying, like that plays more to this entry of the Wishender of like what could have felled her?
Right.
Like that's the question. Like what was she fighting? What was betraying her? What could have caused her to fall? And we just don't know. We just flat out don't know. But I'm in the same mind. Even though it says in the one lore entry that they found her body, I'm not 100% sold here. I
I'm
think
not either.
Shiraido is still alive somewhere. Whether Mara saved her and tucked her away in a little pocket universe in her own little throne world or something, I don't know. That would be my thought. Like yeah, because there's again, to speak of more lore entries, or not lore entries, more text dialogue that you get from when you're doing the Wishender quest. The statue that you have, because it says, you know, it's forbidden to make a statue out of somebody that's still alive, and so they would plant trees, and so that's the whole thing there. But when you go to the Shattered Throne in game, like right now, if you went through Shattered Throne, there's a right after you fight the big ogre, there's a statue of an Awoken woman holding Wishender, and that is the statue of Shiraido. And so the fact that it is a carved statue would make you think that she is dead. Like they are saying that she is dead. Like in all these points are pointing to where she's dead. But then even at the statue, you hear the voice of Shiraido saying, "I will rise again." Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not fully sold on this idea that Shiraido's dead until somebody just comes out and says she's dead. Damn it, she's dead, Jim. Then I'm not believing it.
Yeah, I'm of the mindset that Mara believes that Sheer is dead. I don't think Mara wanted to believe it for quite some time, but I think she finally accepted Sheer's never coming back, and so she created the statue. And we'll talk about that moment probably next week's episode. But I don't believe that she is actually gone. I think maybe her mortal form, her mortal shell
Sure.
is gone, but as we have found and as we'll talk about next week, there are ways around having your mortal form disintegrated or otherwise devoid of life in the Destiny universe.
So the next, so that kind of wraps up Sheer's story, as far as the Awoken are concerned.
Well, we have one more entry.
Oh,
which
surprise entry.
isn't necessarily talking about Sheer herself, but more about the fallout of her being discovered.
Because her being the Queen's Wrath, like that's a big deal. If she's fallen, like obviously they need to appoint another one. Like there's a whole line of stuff that goes with that.
Yes, absolutely. Because as I said before, she was second in command to the Awoken people, essentially. So this is on the Hunter exotic gauntlets called Oathkeeper. And even here, the flavor text for Oathkeeper is a quote from Shiraido saying, "I have not yet met my true death." Again, just a hint that she's not really gone. But the lore card for Oathkeeper goes like this. "This was on her body, your grace. A strange coin lay at the center of Abra's outstretched palm. Mara took it between her thumb and forefinger and held it up to the cosmos with dainty contempt. Weregild, she thought. Powerful grief filled her chest, as thick and caustic and heavy as unset concrete. And her bow. Gone. Hugin and Mungan? The Ahimgara are dead, and their bones are silent, but Petravenge has... Who? A corsair, recently titled. She is a child. Paldanzar flinched as if slapped. My queen, our spies in the House of Judgment tell us the wolves plan to attack Hygia next. I loved Shir as I love all we have lost, and I grieve her. But if we divert our attention now to vengeance against an unknown enemy. Mara put down the coin and allowed herself a small, humorless smile. Then let it be my diversion. And that's the end of the Oathkeeper card.
All right. So I got several things to say here. But go ahead.
Yeah. So the first thing about this entry is it does give us a little bit of a time frame for when this happened. This happened during the Reef Wars, the battle, because they talk about
the House Judgment. Yep. Yep.
The other thing about this, the two kind of key things here, or I guess there's three. The first, a strange coin lay at the center of Abra's outstretched palm. Now, strange coin in this lore card is not capitalized. It is not treated as a proper noun. That's what I was
going to ask.
It's not treated as a proper noun. So it's kind of up for interpretation if strange in this context literally means just unknown to Mara, or if it's strange coin as in the coins that we give Zur in, to get things from him, presumably a currency that the Nine recognize or created in some way.
Which if it's the latter of the two here, there are lots of implications of what could have happened to Shir Ido.
Absolutely. The other thing there is that if we do maybe go with the idea that this was something having to do with the Nine, we also see Mara say that she believes the coin to be Weregild. Weregild, for those that are unfamiliar, is a term meaning essentially payment for killing somebody, usually in the context of two nations. If it's more, I don't know if medieval is the correct time period, but that's what comes to mind. It was definitely a more the time of kingdoms and wars and whatnot. If someone was killed, it was like a fine. You could pay a weregild to the family to make up for the death of that person.
Interesting. So this could have been like a payment from, like it could have been a payment from like a fallen family.
I don't think fallen. And say it just because I don't think the fallen would have that notion, and we've never seen anywhere else in telling a fallen culture that they believe in this like compensation for an offense.
Okay.
So, but then again, we also don't see it anywhere, like period.
Sure. Like this is the only entry of any of Weregild even being mentioned in Destiny,
right?
That I know of.
Me too. So hard to say if it is supposed to be compensation for the death of Shir, and if we do assume it's a strange coin, that would really point to the Nine having something to do with this.
That's what I'm thinking.
That seems to be where things are pointing to, for sure. The other thing here is that they reference Hugin and Munin, which are two Ahamkara that apparently were traveling with Shir, or perhaps that's what Shir was hunting. It's unclear in that regard, but we do know Hugin and Munin were dead, and their bones are silent, which is very interesting for Ahamkara, because typically, unless you like atomize the skeleton, they can still talk through their bones. So something crazy happened for their bones to just not talk after death.
And you can even go visit those bones.
You absolutely can.
They're in the Dreaming City. They're at the very bottom of the Dreaming City. and you can trade stuff to them.
You can. It's pretty interesting that they're still there. So they're still. That makes me think that they were maybe allies of Sheer.
Well, and that kind of leads back to the other entry, right? Where it's like the treacherous Ahamkara. Like, what, where did they betray her? Was there something that happened between those two and Sheer that caused them to turn on her? And then some type of event happened to stop her from killing them and to stop them from unmaking her, or wish magic going on, or crazy shit. Which to me would say that if that's the scenario that's happening, then the 9 could have intervened, and the 9 intervened specifically to save possibly the soul, or whatever you want to call it, the entity of Sheer Ido, but knowing what they took from Mara, being a very personal, I keep saying it, a personal lover of Mara, to say, hey, we're sorry, take this as compensation. That I don't know. There's a lot here.
There absolutely is. I think to offer another perspective, it could be the exact opposite. It could be Hugin and Moonin. The only reason that makes me think Hugin and Moonin were allies of the Awoken or allies to Sheer is the fact that they have been given, their remains have been given pedestals and places of honor.
That they have like their own chambers and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's assume for a moment that they were trusted Ahamkara, and Sheer took them out on whatever escapade she was going to. We do know that the 9, and unfortunately I don't have the lore card up in front of me because I wasn't thinking we were going to go into this realm.
you never know with the 9, man. They just kind of come out of, they just do what they want to do, right?
But we do know that the 9 were looking, and I'm not going to do a 101 on the 9 right now, but they were looking for a way to become corporeal. And they believed one of the methods to do that was via wish dragon magic. So perhaps they saw 2 Ahamkara traveling with this lone Awoken and either tried to steal the Ahamkara from her, or decided that they were going to just kill her and take them in some capacity, and things went sideways, and it led to the death of all 3, or something along those lines.
I want to meet the entity that comes across 2 Ahamkara and the Queen's Wrath of the Awoken, and goes, that'll be an easy target.
I mean, they won.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that one, right? Like that's but the balls on whoever the hell this was.
Oh yeah.
Like who the hell do you think you are? Yeah, no. Okay. Well, yeah, so we haven't really answered a lot of questions in these first few entries. These are very metaphorical question asking entries we have here tonight.
There's a lot of things that we haven't gotten answers on about these events.
Yeah.
And if we go back to that original vision, we might not get answers on what has been happening to Sheer until she comes back, hopefully during Lightfall or whenever that happens.
Well, and that was something I was thinking about too, the vision. Could it be Petrovenge up there with her? With Mara up on top?
Certainly possible. Yeah, the current
the
current Queen's Wrath.
Yeah.
And actually that is a perfect segue, because Petra's the next person we're going to talk about.
See, that was all planned out.
It was all planned out. So we know now Mara lost Sheer during the Reef Wars. And even at that time, Petra was starting to make a name for herself as a Corsair. A recently titled, at that time, Corsair. We know from previous episodes that Petra had originally been undergoing training to be a Techian, didn't really click with her, and so she left, and her training grounds or hometown, whatever it may be, of Amethyst was razed in the attacks during the the Reef Wars, which caused her to become a corsair, to become a soldier, to go, try and fight and seek vengeance. So the next lore entry that we're going to read here actually comes from Destiny 1. And this is the Grimoire card for Petra Venj. And it is a letter that Petra has written to the queen. Presumably, this is after the Reef Wars, but prior to her being Queen's Wrath. And it goes like this. My letter is a plea, my lady, a simple one. Please, let me come home. It has been years now since my appointment as your emissary. Once I was proud to call myself a corsair in your service. My sisters and I were the sharp edge of your will, cutting across the stars in protection of the reef. It was your service that kept me from sorrow after Amethyst was raised. The loss of my sisters, my whole life as our station burned. It took something from me. But your will, it was given back to me, promoting me to the Corsairs, allowing me to strike back at the wolves, letting my fury find purchase in defense, in support, and in glorious battle. I know, as I'm sure you did, that without focus my heart would have grown toxic. It was my pride in my position that sustained me through the Hildean campaign, that led me to victory in the battles against Velinkis the Forgotten Kell, the last hope for the unchained wolves. I know now that it was my willful pride that also brought me low. My lady, I offer again the only explanation I can. I did not know the Guardians would act as they did. All I had ever known, were the ways of the Awoken. The wolves were entrenched in that valley. The approaches were blocked, all sight lines covered. An assault on their position was madness. We would have spent precious Awoken lives for nothing. I saw the Guardians, knew they were on the move, but I assumed they saw the situation as we did, that it was folly to call in the crows. Prince Uldren's fighters' wing did a masterful job. The blast was pinpoint accurate. The blast tore apart the wolves and the Guardians and their ghosts. 3 strike teams of Guardians, gone in an instant, on my order. The city's anger, the speaker's condemnation, all earned, all fair. But it has been years since the Reef Wars. The city, these people, they're not like us. They do not understand their place in the world, and do not listen when I speak it. Please, allow me to return home to my people, to serve you once again. So that's the end of Petra's letter.
Holy shit.
So we learn a couple things about the Reef Wars and about Petra's role in it. So after she joined the Corsairs, she led a successful campaign against this Velinkis Kell, who would have brought the wolves back together. But it sounds like the cost of defeating that final bastion of the wolves before the end of the war was that she did what I assume was some kind of tactical nuke or something similar.
Could have been like one of the no, because she wasn't a Techian, so it wouldn't have been one of the like Harbinger weapons.
No, it wouldn't have been a Harbinger. And she mentioned that she called it in, but it was Prince Uldren's fighter wing that actually dropped the payload.
See, was it a 5th generation air-to-air spare? These aren't simulated tactical nukes, are we? These are actual tactical nukes. Okay, gotcha.
Unbeknownst to her, or I guess she knew they were there, but did not realize that Guardians have a tendency to just throw themselves into the meat grinder, expecting they're always going to be able to come back up and make a couple more feet.
Sure.
She assumed that, okay, those guardians are going to see the same situation we did and go, yeah, we can't do this, and back out. And so she called in the strike, and it did eliminate that, those last bunkers of the House of Wolves, and effectively, I assume, end the war with that final strike. But it also killed the guardians and the ghosts of those guardians, causing the final death of 3 strike teams of guardians, so 9 guardians total.
I mean, there's a parallel that could be drawn from that to world history.
Mm-hmm.
The end of World War II, and the United States said, "All right, well, we can end this. We can end this war with Japan. We got this," and dropped 2 nukes on 2 cities. But yeah, the war ended. But at what cost? Like, that's a hell of a price to pay there. Like, I mean, granted, this was just 3 undead space ghosts with their mechanical friends that keep reviving them for no reason. But yeah, that's a hell of a decision to make and to accept the consequences of.
Yep. And the consequences were that, the city, which we know now the city was established, the role of the speaker was established, though
Yep.
may not have been the same speaker we were familiar with in Destiny 1. And they condemned perhaps all of the Awoken, but definitely Petra at the very least, for that loss of guardian life.
That, I think that definitely starts like that divide between the city and the Awoken people, for sure.
Yes.
I mean, like it because even in D1, like when D1 first came out, we didn't have access to places like the Reef, and even when we even throughout the D1 campaign, when we go to the Reef, it was like hey, there were Awoken ships there that were just like, you are in Awoken airspace, identify yourself or be destroyed, full stop. Like, you don't fuck with us, we don't fuck with you. That's the agreement we have. Now you're in our territory. And so it was a big deal for even in D1 for an Awoken, or for a Guardian to go into the Reef, into Awoken territory. So yeah, no, hell, we saw it with Shaxx, right? Like, this, for any Guardian to be in Awoken territory, that's a big deal now. Well, or at least it was during D1 days, and this could definitely be the final catalyst that kind of like drives that wedge between the Awoken and the city.
No, absolutely. And so the recompense that Mara put upon Petra was that she had to be a embassy in the city. And actually, we saw her during Destiny 1 for a brief period of time, in the role of embassy in the tower, in the Destiny 1 tower, where you could talk to her. You got quests and bounties from her, and that's where the original Awoken weapons came from in Destiny 1, such as the Supremacy and a few others.
Holy shit. That might predate my time from playing Destiny 1, because I always remember her being out in the Reef.
Yeah, it was a very brief time. I want to say like maybe a month, maybe it was a little longer than that.
Holy shit.
But she showed up in the Destiny 1 tower as a vendor you could talk to, and that was her fulfilling her duties as an embassy, as trying to spread the ideology of the Awoken with the people of the city, as well as try to repair relations a little bit, by
holy shit,
offering gear and resources to the Guardians that sought her out.
I mean, what does the Guardian want but loot? I mean, hell, we saw the same thing with Savin that was Chow Mu, right? Like,
yep.
all a Guardian wants is loot. Some way to make their grenades faster.
So at this point, though, she is writing this letter to Mara saying, like, it is the war has been over for years. I've been serving my sentence, and it's not working. These people don't get it when I'm trying to tell them where their place in the world is, which is maybe a bit presumptuous on Petra's part.
Just a little, right?
But just like, it's not working out. I've been here for years. Let me come home. Let me be with my people and serve you, in a more meaningful way. And eventually that plea comes to fruition. Because the very next lore entry that we're going to talk about is a entry entitled Honored, which comes from the book The Dreaming City. And that one goes like this. Pride flutters in Petra's throat like a trapped bird. She doesn't know whether she will fly away or drop dead. As the elevator descends, she looks left at Ilian and then right at Uldren. She shuffles in her gleaming formal armor. From exile as tower emissary to this is incredible, unbelievable. She does not deserve it. This is real, she whispers, unable to stop herself. Uldren smiles, but Ilian makes a warning gesture. Be silent. Music begins to swell as the elevator settles. At the center of the room, the paladins and the rest of Ilian's Techians are arrayed around Riven, of course, and her breath catches. Mara. She can't help shooting another quick glance at Uldren. How? His smile widens. Petra sets her jaw, pulls her shoulders back, stands strong and tall. A chorus of 30 sings them into the Hall of Names. The air is sweet with lavender, and there are hundreds of candles lit all around the room. And even at this distance, she can see Halam is verklempt. This is as good a homecoming as she could ever imagine, more than she ever deserved. When they reach the dais, she kneels. Uldren and Ilian proceed past her so that they can acknowledge the queen and her awaiting counselors. The song ends. The music quells. Uldren and Ilian speak together, and their voices ring out fierce and true. Your Grace, we here present to you Petra Venge, your loyal servant. Wherefore all you who are come to this day to witness her homage and service, do you acknowledge her? Petra cannot see anything but her own distorted reflection in her polished sabatoons. She closes her eyes. I do, Mara says, and Petra's throat tightens. Uldren and Ilian synchronized. Petra Venge, are you willing to take the oath? I am willing, Petra manages, struggling to steady her voice. Will you solemnly promise and swear to protect our people, our holdings, our territories, and our immaterial interests? I solemnly promise to do so. Will you, to your power, cause law and justice in mercy to be executed in all your judgments? I will. Will you, to the utmost of your power, uphold our suspital duties in defense of your queen's life? Will you execute and preserve inviolably the orders of your queen? And will you preserve unto your dying breath the secrets committed to your charge? All this I promise to do. Then rise, Mara says, and declare yourself. Petra lifts her head to find Mara's eyes. Let it be declared that with the oaths which I have here before promised, I, Petra Venge, will perform and keep. Mara smiles and steps forward with a fresh-forged knife. Then receive this blade, brought now from the forges of Intarmina. With this blade do justice, stop the growth of inequity, restore the things that are gone to decay, maintain the things that are restored, punish and reform the things that are amiss, and confirm the things that are in proper order, that doing these things you may embody my will and become my wrath. May the hunt be good. May the hunt be good, echoes the assembly. Petra does not see the cynical glance that passes between Leona and Pavel, who have both served the queen faithfully for decades. She does not see the way Riven tastes the air. She sees Mara, and Mara alone. And that's the end of that card.
That's a cool. I'm a sucker for cool military ceremonies, like all the pomp and like having been military, like I know the amount of time and effort these guys take to like polish their uniforms and all the awards and everything, all the ribbons, and they've got to be exactly eighth of an inch here, quarter of an inch here, da 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 da, like all the way down the line. And it's I'm a sucker for any of that stuff. So I'm kind of like giddy right now thinking of this entry. But yeah, so this is it. Petra has now been made Queen's Wrath. Number 2 in command, second only to Mara and Uldren, the queen and the prince of the Awoken.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's not really much to say here. This is just a really cool ceremony.
It is really cool, and there's not a whole lot of details to glean outside of what's already here.
Oh, sure.
Other than
it's pretty damn detailed as it is.
It is. The only two little things that are one's just kind of cool, and one's like informing some of the unrest that's maybe happening in the background. The first being that Mara is the one that has gifted Petra her knife, the one presumably that we see her use everywhere.
Oh yeah, the old knife trick.
Yep, like that is Mara gave that to her as symbol of her becoming Queen's Wrath. So that's just a cool little detail.
Freshly forged from where the hell is this name?
Interaminia. Interamnia. Yeah, there are no vowels between the M and the N.
This is making these goddamn words up at this point.
Oh,
it's just rude. Freaking Awoken and their weird ass rude words. I can't.
So
anyway,
here's a fun thing though. As difficult as that word is to say, it's a real word.
Get out of town.
And again,
get the hell out of town.
And again, it comes to us from Greek origins.
I knew it. I knew it either be Greek or Latin.
And it is a ancient Greek name meaning between rivers. So we know that the Awoken seem to have this thing about rivers, distributary and well, I guess mainly distributary is what they.
I was gonna say, come on, man, come up with another one.
I know. I was like, wait, there was another one, but no. And now Interamina. So yeah, there again another river reference, another Greek reference, as there are so many in this game.
I like to think of it as like if we keep with this like river metaphor thing, like space is like it's like the Great Sea, right? Like that's the next. Anytime you see any type of sci-fi show, they talk about space being the great ocean. Like that's the next new frontier, Like that's, and so to see these river ideas are, I think it's kind of neat because every river leads to the ocean. So I think that's just a neat little thing. And of course the Greek referencing, that's just the whoever this Greek intern is or that works at Bungie, good on you.
It's I love it, and it's everywhere.
It's working.
So.
It's working. Whether it be a Greek intern or the intern that has just a PhD in Greek philosophy, good on you.
Absolutely. The only other little bit here that is worth noting is the very end. It talks about how there's a cynical glance between Leona and Pavel, who both have served the queen faithfully for decades, and I assume are feeling like they deserved. One of them should have been the next Queen's Wrath, not this upstart corsair that caused this huge, political snafu.
I was going to say that's definitely two guys that are kind of pissy about not getting what they think is their due and their deserved due. So yeah.
And we see that reflected in the fact that they have a desire that Riven, tastes.
Oh,
Riven tastes
shit.
the air. So there's
I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, there's something there that Riven's picking up on in some fashion. But Petra is just awestruck by Mara. She is the only one she can focus on. And I never have gotten the impression from any of the lore cards or from any of the dealings that we've seen in game between Petra and Mara that there's any kind of romantic relationship there like there was with Sheer.
I don't think there is. Maybe a mutual. It's funny because like my wife even talks about the relationship between Shiraido and Mara as being this mutual respect of this hunter. But I think theirs was very much a love interest, whereas like Petra and Mara I think are more that mutual warrior thing.
Yeah. I definitely think that Sheer and Mara had a romantic relationship. I think that's pretty clear from what we read, especially in our last episode. Between Petra and Mara, though, yeah, I feel it's more a... It starts off with Petra sees Mara more as an idol. Sees Mara more as that, like, infallible god that she is supposed to have faith in. And that has really driven her character, is that when she was in a really dark place from the loss of Amethyst and her sisters and everything she knew, like, her faith in Mara is what kept her going. And I think that has just become a part of her personality at this point, is that she has undying faith in Mara and Mara's actions.
Sure. Well, and I'm curious, is because I know when we talked about when the Awoken people split, when they did come back, and we had the Earthborn and the Reefborn, it talked about all of them having this not unnatural, but like this pull towards Mara, that this pointing, this compass pointing towards Mara. And I'm curious if that's I don't want to say that that's Mara manipulating things. It seems like it, like in the back of my head, it seems like it. But I think as far as Petra's concerned, I think it truly is that unwavering, that undying faith to Mara, and maybe not to Mara, but definitely the Awoken people, the Awoken ideas, the everything of that it means to be Awoken. Like that's yeah. I think that.
No, absolutely. And Mara is in a lot of ways the pinnacle of those ideas.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, the 3 edicts, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Down from 9. She learned from Alice Lee. Maybe don't make too many. Maybe just, 1 or 2 and we'll call it good.
Yeah. Easier to follow.
Exactly. Who needs 9 when you can have 3?
So with that, we're going to transition our focus away from the Queen's Wraths and over to Uldren Sov, because he is up to some very important things in this time period, which would be after the appointment of Petra Venj as the second Queen's Wrath, but before the meeting of our player guardian. And Uldren gets up to some shenanigans. Particularly an interest in the Black Garden. And we see what all that entails in the book titled The Forsaken Prince. So we're going to start with the length of chain, part 1 from the Forsaken Prince. And it goes like this. Jolyon, my man, Uldren whispers, you and I are going to take the Black Garden. Oh yeah? Jolyon Till, famous among the crows, sniper, scout, and teller of tales, lies full sprawl, prone at Uldren's side, the scrubbed-down length of a supremacy rifle snugged against his shoulder, nearly doubles his height. I hear you and I are going to float Saturn in a bathtub. I'm serious, Joel. And you'll be dead serious if you go to Mars. Hardy har har. Target range, 2,900 meters. Wind and rotation? Wind 21 kilometers from your 3 o'clock. You are 2 degrees off spin north. I'm going, though. I really am. You've got to come. You'll never live it down if you miss this one. I'll never live anything down if I'm dead. Shot ready. Send it, Uldren says. The supremacy booms and kicks into Jolyon's shoulder. Uldren doesn't even have to bother to check that it's a bullseye. You've been with me on all the big ones, Joel. I can't do it without you. Besides, he opens his hand to reveal the ejected cartridge snatched from midair, Cobra quick. If we don't do it, some guardians will, and the next thing you know, Mara will be inviting them in to do crow work. Jewel rolls onto his right flank to regard Uldren. The master of crows grins his winningest at Jolyon Till. Jolyon squints and slaps the mag release, one-handed. Uldren catches it. You're a lot like your sister, Jolyon sighs. Except that when she plays dirty, she doesn't smile so big. I got all the charm in the family. Uldren waits patiently for Joel to work the bolt and eject the chambered round. He usually wins this little game. Usually. But sometimes Joel surprises him. Nobody's ever been inside the garden. Imagine what we'll find. Nameless horrors? They're all nameless when nobody's named them, Joel. Nobody's ever been. Isn't that enticing? No, because your sister's forbidden it, Uldren. That, he says cheerfully, is how I know it's worth doing. And because the Awoken people will thrill at another tale of his narrow survival. Mara's never really understood how much heroes matter to people. A queen is an indispensable thing, but a hero, now you know what he wants, when he's lost and when he's won. That's the end of that card.
So here we have a sniper and his spotter, just shooting the shit. Mid, I'm assuming this is just target practice.
I'm assuming so. Yeah.
This is a full on, out in the field or anything. And Uldren, I like Uldren's, like, he's got a bit of a pop to him, right? Like he's got this, like, hey man, let's go do this shit. Like, hey, there's this forbidden thing over here. Everybody knows it's off limits. Let's go fucking do it. Let's go, man. Let's go in there. Let's see what's in there. It's got to be good because Mara said you can't go. Like,
yeah.
And that I think he's partly playing up wanting Jolyon, which from this instance definitely seems like a very, very close friend to Uldren.
Yes, absolutely.
He definitely wants his close friend to come, but it's also, that's what Uldren is. He defines himself by what he can survive. So I think in his mind he thinks, well, if I can survive the Black Garden, like that's just another thing that's just another notch on the belt, right? Like that's just one more story for the history books. And he says as much towards the end. The whole, like, a hero, what he wants, what he's after. Like, a queen's just a figurehead. That's just a pomp and circumstance and blah 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 blah. But a hero, bravado, blah. Like, yeah.
It's interesting. So yeah, absolutely. Uldren much more lighthearted at this point. Much more. These are two very good friends, two military buddies that are seemingly have 2,900 meter target practice.
I was gonna make a point to say something about it. I was like, in my head as I'm doing this, I'm like 2,300 2.3 clicks. Is that what we're talking about? We're talking. What is this rifle? What the hell is he shooting this thing with? This is and now mind you, this is a rapid fire frame. This is a 140. Okay, so this isn't even like the hardest hitting of the snipers in game. Like, so like in my head, I'm like, okay, well, 2.3, that's got to be something big. That's got to be like a 338 Lapua, maybe a 30-06. Maybe I don't think 50 cal, because I think 50 cal that'd be pushing the range of like the 72s. Like, I don't know. Even a 338 seems a little fast for a 140. Maybe this is just a 30-06, but still, like, you're not gonna hit something at 2.3 clicks with a 30-06. It's just not happening.
Say it certainly doesn't happen in Crucible, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, god dang right it doesn't. And not with we're not talking about airborne efficiency right now.
No, that is a whole different show.
Whatever the hell it is.
But yeah, so yeah, very accomplished sniper by all means. And yeah, his buddy is trying to get him to come along on a little adventure. And I think maybe what Uldren is thinking to himself here about the people need a hero is maybe a little more at the core of why he likes to measure himself against the things he survives. Because from Mara's point of view, she has said as such, people need a leader that they don't understand, because then they can assume that leader knows things that they don't, and will always be able to overcome insurmountable odds.
Absolutely. Even if they themselves know that the odds are insurmountable.
Right.
Like, even if the leader themselves knows that this is something that I can't overcome, if the people believe in that leader that they can overcome, that leader can overcome, then the people then believe that they can overcome.
Yeah, if that leader remains mysterious and so seems above the rest of them, it's easier to put their faith in that person to do impossible things.
Absolutely.
From Uldren's point of view, he's saying what Mara doesn't understand is the people also need somebody more on their level that they can look up to and say, they did it, that will inspire other people to become stronger, to strive to be more heroic. And I think for Uldren personally, what this is saying is he says, hey, as long as I can come out in the end, I can still be the hero. And until something comes along that kills me, I'm going to keep trying to add to the history books of what we, the Awoken people, are able to do when we really put our mind to it.
Absolutely.
So I think similar, wants a similar result, but is going about it in a very different way, has a very different mindset to Mara. And but again, this also plays into him wanting Mara's approval. He wants her to see him as a hero. He wants her to acknowledge his accomplishments and see that he is contributing to their people.
Absolutely. Like, that's it. Addicted to her approval is the term we've used before, and that's absolutely couldn't apply more here.
Yeah. So we continue this with the very next chapter of the Forsaken Prince book, which is The Length of Chain, Part 2. And it goes like this. Their departure is meant to be secret. Nobody will turn out, he assures Joel. We'll slip away at zenith. By the time anyone catches on, we'll be aerobraking into the Meridian Bay. You are insufferably cocky, Joel says, and by the time we go, the whole city will know you're up to something. They will not. When they set out for their ship, they find the promenades and galleries aswarm with cheering throngs of Uldren's fans and followers. He waves and waves, turning, grinning, in a better mood than he will maybe be ever again. And if one dark mote burns within him, it is the fear and certainty that these people love him only because he is closest to their queen. Do they ever ask themselves why he's constantly breaking her rules? Why he always ventures so far from her? He wants his sister's approval. He knows and accepts that. But he wants her approval for something she did not anticipate, did not plan or foresee, did not account for. He wants her to thank him with surprise. If you hurl yourself away from someone to test the length of your chain, you cannot know the chain's length until it draws you short. Does that make sense? Uldren thinks so. Uldren is afraid so. Either he is truly free of his sister, free to choose to stand at her side, to choose his own free will, or the chain is longer than he has managed to run. That's the end of that chapter.
I love this whole idea of like, oh yeah, no, nobody will know, nobody will find us, we'll be long gone by the time they figure out. Like the whole freaking city is just, yeah, Uldren, Uldren, and he's just like, yes, thank you, people, thank you, my fans, my cheering, yes, Uldren. Yeah, no, that's exactly what's happening here.
Oh yeah, he's the hot shot. He's the celebrity. He's the beloved,
absolutely,
warrior going off to some other corner of the universe to show how grand
some
the Awoken
new adventure.
are.
Yeah.
And internally, though, he's thinking to himself, these people only care about me because I'm so close to Mara. Now, I don't know that that's true. I would like to think that Uldren has probably built this fan base for himself because of his own accomplishments. But he doesn't believe that. He doesn't think anyone would care about him if he didn't have this connection to Mara. And it's also interesting to see he knows that he wants her approval desperately. And he accepts that fact. And it also seems that he's trying to see, I don't know if this is entirely accurate, but kind of like a little kid going through, the rebellious phase, quote unquote.
Oh, absolutely.
He's trying to see how much trouble can I get into before like finally she has to do something about me. What can I do that will finally shock and surprise her? What can I do that she didn't plan for to prove to myself that I have my own free will and that everything I do wasn't just predestined by her?
Because that's very much the mystery around Mara, right? Is the whole, like, everything seems to be because she's so confident that it's going to be that way, that when it turns out that way, everyone's like, oh, look, she's malevolent, she knows all, like, she is omnipotent, like, she's everything. And so to see, I mean, the fact that these entries are entitled length of chain, like, he's trying to see how far he can push it. To see, at what point in time does Mara finally have to say, okay, reel it in, like, cut this crap out, now you're just being stupid. Even there are some things that even I can't predict or see or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're right.
So that leads us into the next chapter of this book called At the Gate, Part 1. Give Uldren Sov the chance to torment a guardian, and he will take it faster than you can shout. Rasputin shot the traveler. An opinion he lobs into guardians' minds whenever he can. He hates the traveler's horseflies the way anyone would hate an infant godling issued with coloring book morality and a whining know-nothing paperweight. They are self-righteous, cocksure, callously instrumental intruders in a system they do not understand. He hates that most, the ability to move through the world without caring about how it works. So he's done everything to Guardians he can think of. Shot them up, shot them down, sent them on doomed quests, dunked their ghosts in intolerably stinky cellophane, drilled holes to bury their obnoxious patrol beacons inside solid rock, tricked them into disassembling mighty weapons. But every time he gets into a gunfight, he wonders what it must be like to do this without any sheer raving terror. Jolyon, he hisses as the goblin downslope lobs another grenade his way. Jolyon, where are you? Nothing. The grenade detonation pops Uldren's ears and he pushes ozone up his sinuses so hard that he sneezes. The goblin fires at the sneeze. Glassy shards of melted sand ricochet off his cover and shatter into chiming airbursts. He is 300 meters upslope. Guardians, armored cabal, and fearless Vex may fight at point-blank range, but mere mortals still hang back so far they can barely see their targets. The infernal thing about Vex is that they teleport. Uldren's not sure if he's pinned down by 10 goblins or 1. A bullet cracks past. That's the end of that chapter.
Again, another entry that not a whole lot of stuff to play off of. Like, this is just him assaulting the gate, essentially the entry to the Black Garden. But I want to take a minute here to kind of like dissect his opinion of Guardians.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first thing just being the whole Rasputin shot the Traveler. I don't know why I absolutely love that whole thing. Like that the whole idea, because that's the big rumor. Like that's the whole thing that at least from Uldren's point of view, he's spreading as a rumor to say that's why the Traveler is essentially dead and sitting above the last city. I mean, we know that there's a whole lot more to it than just, hey, Rasputin shot the Traveler.
Well, and
but
I think it's funny. So this book came out with Forsaken. It was a pretty well-held fan theory for some time that was the case. That was later disproved completely.
Yep.
Via other lore cards. That Rasputin had calculated that as a possibility of what it might have to do, but never actually followed through. Or never had to follow through, I should say. So this is another they're kind of metagaming a little bit. They're like, we're going to canonize this theory that's kind of out there that has been disproven, but not a lot of people maybe have looked it up to find out.
Yeah, I like it. I really like it. But yeah, so he, these next few entries, he hates the Traveler's horseflies the way anyone would hate an infant godling issued with coloring book morality and a whining know-nothing paperweight. I don't like. I want to. I almost want to agree with him.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty accurate to the initial Destiny 1 and somewhat beginning of Destiny 2 Guardians.
No offense to all you new lights out there that are just finding this podcast.
Yeah.
We don't think you're just a know-nothing horsefly with coloring book morality and a whining know-nothing paperweight. You are a guardian of the last city. But there was a time.
This is very much how the story was presented to us throughout the entirety of Destiny 1 was you are the good guy, they are the bad guy, go shoot them.
Go shoot them. That's full stop. That was the entire story. You good, they bad, go kill.
And it's very interesting to see Uldren, a in-game character, recognize that is not how the world works, and to hold a very I don't want to say aggressive, but opinionated of the Guardians because of that.
Absolutely.
But I do like picturing some of this, though. I can't help but laugh. The shot them up and shot them down is not, again, karma coming your way, Uldren.
Slightly.
But the other things he's done actually is just kind of make me laugh. Dunked their ghosts in this intolerably stinky material. The real one drilled holes to bury their patrol beacons inside solid rock.
I could just imagine that, right? Like you know that there's a patrol, like you pop your ghost out and it says, okay, like, there's a patrol beacon over there, and you go over to that point and there's no patrol beacon, like you can't find it, so you're just like, what the fuck is wrong with this patrol beacon? Not knowing that Uldren has drilled a hole in the wall and stuck it in there. Like that's absolutely.
Every single bugged patrol beacon, you can just assume at some point in time that was Uldren having fun.
100%.
Yep.
100%. And then like trick them into dismantling mighty weapons. How many times do you think he got somebody to dismantle their Galahorn in front of him? Sad face.
Sad face. But no, so he's having all these thoughts go through his head, and despite his ill will towards the Guardians, he can't help but wonder, what is it like to just not care when you're in the middle of a bullet storm? What is it like to be able to just run right up to him and mess him up at close range? And where he, as a mortal, is like, I gotta be way the hell back in the rocks and taking cover and making sure that they can't hit me, or hopefully can't hit me. And this entire time he's calling for Jolyon, like, hey, where's my support here?
Where's my sniper?
And he's got this goblin coming up the way. He doesn't know if it's one or many, just because they teleport and he can't get a good, he can't peek out enough to get a good sight. And then he hears that bullet crack past his head. Presumably Jolyon finally has dialed in the enemy, and is making his shot.
I'm just saying, bullets take a little bit of time to travel, especially you're shooting them 2.3 clicks out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just saying.
So that leads us into the very next card of this book, which is At the Gate, Part 2. Radiolarian fluid splashes on the sand. I got it, Jolyon radios. But I'm pretty sure I also got made. Confirmation arrives in a fusillade of Cabal mortar shells. Smart munitions that home in on the sound of the rifle shot. Usually the Cabal do not waste them against Vex. Some Centurion must be eager to use her toys on a target that won't teleport away. Uldren sucks air in relief when Jolyon clicks his transmat switch to signal he's okay. Uldren gets up, panting. He can just see the gate to the garden. Everyone knows where it is, sure, it's just getting inside that's the trick. The air blurs, a roiling cloud of vacuum flux blocks his view, and then in a blast of discharge, a Vex Minotaur strides into existence. Uldren curses, throws a jamming grenade, and runs. There's got to be a better way to do this, he gasps. Any ideas? Only the one you don't like. Thread the gate with a ship coming in at Mach 20. The gate's not active. Even if we made it through the Cabal guns, we need to trick the Vex into opening the door. That means killing a Gate Lord with just our personnel weapons. No, it doesn't, Uldren breathes. I have a princely idea. This is what Uldren lives for. Skittering past death, brushing its whiskers, leaping away from that toothy maw. Break contact. We need stealth now. Then we need to pick a few unfortunate targets. And that's the end of that card. Another short one.
Jolyon made his shot. Now we just got to get inside. Like I do like the idea of just flying a ship, like just balls to the walls, Mach 20, just full throttle all the way in, and then it's like, okay, yeah, even if we did that, the gate's still not open. Like it's still just a giant metal ring that doesn't solve anything. Like yeah, and then the few unfortunate targets. I'm assuming that's just a few Vex or a few Cabal or something in the area, possibly a Guardian or two. Like I like this.
So I say the last entry we're going to do tonight is the very next one called Through the Gate. And this one goes like this. They crawl, belly down across the Martian desert like worms. Active camouflage ponchos break up their outlines. The roaming Cabal harvesters growl on the horizon. For the last 8 hours, Jolyon has been picking off Cabal infantry with his rifle, fleeing the eruption of automatic counterfire. Uldren has listened on cracked battle nets as mightier weapons are invoked and brought to bear. The war machine is now inflamed, swollen with outrage. Jolyon touches Uldren's ankle. Fingertips drum out code. How far? 50 meters, Uldren whispers. If the Vex know we're here, they haven't. The air prickles. Subsonic groans of power stir in the sand. Something mighty awakens above them. Never mind, Uldren mutters. The Vex have now reacted. He throws off his poncho, rising with revolver and deflection grenade in his fists, screaming challenge. Jutting from the Martian desert before them is the canted, fringed hoop that is the Black Garden's gate. Huge enough to swallow a fallen skiff, it thrills with infinite energy. Out of the aperture emerges the behemoth silhouette of a Vex Gate Lord, metal and mind crashing together, self-assembling, ready to defend this secret place. The Vex are born here in the sense of baptism, consecrated to the service of some terrible purpose that the machines found within. Hey, big guy, Uldren shouts, over here. Calmly, carefully, Jolyon Till begins to fire his rifle straight up into the sky. The reports of the Supremacy's huge cartridges spill out across the dunes. The Gate Lord towers above them. Uldren whoops and hip fires a couple rounds into the sand at his feet. Can you dance, sir? He bellows. Have you got the footwork? Inside the Vex entity, their mighty algorithms constructing a model of this merely temporal place, calculating potential threat, weighing the utility of weapon discharge against the good that power might do elsewhere. This computation is the only reason Uldren is still alive. The bone mic tuned to Cabal tactical channels wakes up at Uldren's throat. They have localized the sound of Jolyon's rifle and are responding. He hollers up at the Vex behemoth and starts to jig. It's going to rain on Mars. It's monsoon season here in Meridian Bay. Did you see the forecast? He grabs Joel by the hand and pulls. Together they sprint towards the Gate Lord and its charge. The Vex machine must know what's coming, but it has to weigh the certainty of Cabal against the tiny possibility of these microbiotic motes slipping into the gate. The Gate Lord raises a weapon to obliterate them. They skid into the gate's threshold, and Uldren activates the deflection grenade so hard he nearly breaks his thumb. A perfect sphere of topologically defective space-time blinks into being around him. He holds Jolyon close, and together they calm their breath. The barrier is impenetrable, but it will not last long. Until then, there's only so much air to breathe. Outside, the full fury of a Cabal fleet carrier lands on the Gate Lord. When the barrier fades, the Gate Lord is dead, and Uldren and Jolyon are no longer on Mars. And that's the end of that chapter.
I love this idea of these two guys just, I mean, all this military bravado, right? Like the creeping through the sand on their bellies and tapping on each other's ankles to so that way they don't make any sounds. They're feeling out, where are we going? Where are we going? Active camo ponchos that are breaking up their outlines, making it look like nobody's there, and and then all of a sudden, hey, how much further? And Uldren's like, 50 meters. We're almost there, I swear. And all of a sudden, shit starts going off around him. The gate comes to life. This Vex Lord appears, and he's like, shit, too late. and then this whole like, hey, big guy, can you dance? Pop, 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 pop. Like, what is this Wild West bullshit? Like, this is just Uldren being a turd is what it is.
Yeah.
And then of course, the picking up the supremacy and just, and I say this lightly, but again, whatever the supremacy shoots, whatever rounds that it is firing, have got to be big. And so for Jolyon to just kind of like lean it up in the air and just pop off, 10, 15 rounds, get the hell out of here. Like,
yeah,
get the hell out of here. Which then calls in the all the smart munitions from the Cabal to fire essentially right on that spot, which just so happened to have a Gate Lord in the same spot. Which I'm trying to think, is there a spot in D2 where we as the player get to see a Gate Lord? I mean, Atheon is my first thought as far as size.
That's a good question.
I know in D1 they send you on a mission to go get the head of a Gate Lord.
Right.
You go fight a Gate Lord. Like that was a big thing to do, was to save that checkpoint and use up your items to try to get better drops from it, because he was a fairly easily killable boss. But he was huge. Maybe Insight Terminus, or not Insight Terminus. Inverted Spire.
Yeah, I think Inverted Spire might be a Gate Lord. I'll have to look at the name next time I run through that. Yeah, I think Inverted Spire maybe.
That might be the only one.
Yeah, because I think Atheon is technically like higher than a Gate Lord as far as in function.
Right, like he is like the above all Gate Lords. Like
right, comparable in size though to what the model is, to give people a perspective of like this thing they were facing.
Specs.
Yeah, like this for especially for non-guardian, non-light bearers, mortals with nothing but their personnel weapons.
Yeah.
To take on this towering Vex is insane.
Yeah, absolutely, it's insane. And the fact that they make it, presumably. Not presumably, they do make it.
They do make it, yep.
When the barrier fate, like I like the idea of this little barrier, right? Like, pops this little thing that's just completely impenetrable. It only lasts for so long. There's only so much air to breathe inside this little bubble. But then of course, full Cabal fleet carrier, just all the munitions of everything lands on this Gate Lord, and then Gate Lord out of existence, and now they are no longer on Mars. And that's where our cliffhanger begins.
Yeah, that's the cliffhanger of this episode. So we're gonna
tune in next week.
Yeah, we're gonna end it there for tonight, because we're coming up on time.
Absolutely.
Say there were a few shout outs though. I wanted to go
Sweet.
over here at the end of the episode.
I love a good shout out. It gives me a lot of good feel good feelings.
Yeah.
In my happy place.
So coming to the first one coming to us from Twitter, by the name of BT, just left us a little message saying, "Killing it, fellas. Love the listen. Awesome work. #1 D2 lore source." So thank you. That is very there's a lot of competition in that sphere, so I'm glad we're number one.
Amazingly, there is. I didn't realize how much. I mean, I guess in podcast form, I don't know that there's a whole lot, but definitely as far as like just lore dissection and lore. What would you call it? I guess lore dissection is probably the best term. I mean, obviously there's My Name is Bife, Milam Games, like I mean, these are huge names. Like they are our Vex Gate Lord. We are the little little microbial motes slipping by. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah. As a one that comes to us from Audible, now that I know those exist and we can go
Yay.
find those. This one comes to us from just username Carrie on Audible. It says, "I can't show my appreciation for this podcast enough. I can't tell you for how long I've been looking for a way to dive into Destiny lore that is not totally life-consuming. And I can finally say that I found it. I'm glad to have you two do all my homework for me. I mean, to have Myth do the homework. Thanks, guys, and keep it up."
I knew you were gonna... I was going to say something, and then you said it.
I am just reading verbatim what they put in their their review.
Wait, did they say you by name?
Yes,
did
they did.
say
Yes,
Myth?
they did.
God damn it.
Uh,
Well, they're not wrong.
but so thank you to Carrie for leaving us that on Audible. I do wonder how I suppose because you can break it up, but I do wonder like 2-hour episodes not being life consuming if you listen to giant stints of us, but
Nah, man, you just do it at work, right? Like you got one little earbud in, right? Like I don't know if it's just me, and maybe this is making me old, or maybe it makes me feel old. But almost every place I've gone to, somebody there has got at least one AirPod in,
oh yeah,
and I'm like, what are you?
I'm guilty
You
of
literally
that.
spend all. Get out of town.
No, I am absolutely guilty of that. I pretty much
Oh my
consistently
gosh.
have music or podcasts or whatnot going. So, yeah,
I feel old now, Myth.
that's all right.
I feel so old. Oh well. Well, thank you, Carrie. I'm glad that you also recognize that Myth does all the homework, and I'm just around to analyze live. Myth likes my live reactions to stuff too, so
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of our theory crafting comes from bouncing ideas back and forth.
I love our theory crafting. Although I will admit, Myth definitely has the better end of it. He comes up with a lot better theories than I do, but I think that's because he does a lot more homework than I do.
Well, but no. So the last little shout out here is not necessarily a review or anything like that, but say we had a question/request kind of that was posted to our Twitter. This is again by PC Gamer Twilight, who we gave a shout out to I think a couple episodes ago.
Yeah.
So they had the question of debts needing to be repaid as far as the Awoken, handling the House of Wolves during the Reef Wars, and all of that. And so to clarify kind of what our understanding is of that whole situation, Mara and the Awoken that followed her coming into the Soul System left the distributary because they believed, the Awoken believed, they had a debt to repay to the Soul System. That
the entire system.
Right, that them leaving the battle early was, something that they needed to come back and use their technology and their knowledge acquired over their time in the distributary to pay it back to their home, to Earth and whatnot, and try and help in any way they could. And I think Mara taking on the Fallen during the Reef Wars and trying to protect the city is just an extension of that original debt, that original thought that we are here to protect humanity. And that was something that would have put humanity in dire straits if they had not stepped in. So I think that's the debts that are in question.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that they mentioned was, what are your opinions on all of Destiny in general? What are the things you like and dislike most about the game?
Oh God.
not gonna go terribly in depth on that because honestly, it could make a whole nother show out of it.
I was going to say that's a whole nother episode.
But I will say maybe just generally speaking, for me at least, and Zor can say what his own personal views are. For me, I think the high points for sure are the narrative now, especially the story, both like in game as well as the lore context, obviously. Say if we're gonna get a little technical, I think gameplay wise, it is still one of the best feeling shooters out there anywhere. There are a few now that are maybe comparable, but I think Destiny still is well up there, top 3, if not still number 1 for me personally. Dislikes, I think, are probably very similar to what you've seen other members of the community express. I feel like the champion system is a little dated. That needs to be reworked. I feel like their difficulty in general needs to be reworked. I feel like the uh, just the way they approach how seasonal content is dished out week to week. While I like getting those weekly story beats, I feel like um the process, the recipe they're using is starting to get a little stale at this point. Um so not that I claim to have answers for any of that, but just my personal feelings as I've played through the game. I should say one last positive. I'll end on one other positive. I really, really enjoy where they're going with build crafting. That is by far one of the most interesting things for me personally. I played a lot of Diablo. I played a lot of Borderlands and whatnot prior to Destiny, and during Destiny as well, where that's a big thing. Being able to make those builds that make me feel like I have really come up with something special and makes me feel powerful. Those keep me going all day. So that's my side of things. I'll let Zor have show his side now.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is the storytelling, the lore, like I'm definitely, when I think of games or worlds or universes, I'm definitely more the sci-fi between myself and my wife. My wife is a lot more fantasy. She likes a lot of magic and wizards and dwarfs and stuff like that. And I'm definitely, I love a good science fiction, only because I think I've been obsessed with space and space travel, and I studied a lot of the Apollo missions and the Gemini missions and the Mercury missions. And um, fun fact, April 12th is Cosmonaut Day in Russia, because that was the day that Yuri Gagarin made his initial flight to be the first human to be put into orbit. Yeah, didn't know that, did you? Fun fact. So yeah, so I to me it's a lot of the space, but I also like the fantasy. Like, so for me it's the what if sci-fi but with magic, and that's where Destiny, I think, does, like Myth put it. Destiny is one of the only games that I think that I can think of that puts sci-fi and magic together and says, this is our world. Yeah, you can shoot a gun, but you can also create a black hole in the palm of your hand and huck it at somebody. You can create little miniature suns and throw them on the ground and burn the world. Like, I like that idea. I like that idea of magic and stuff. I think the gunplay is incredibly unique. Like, there's not a lot of games that can capture a gunfight between a player and an AI entity, or a player and another player, or anything like that, the way that Destiny does, and I really like that. I think as far as dislikes, I'm half and half on the champion system. I think it is starting to show its age a little bit. My biggest qualm is match game. I
Yes.
with like
Yes.
what Myth was saying with build crafting. Build crafting is awesome. It's amazing. It's so dependent on you running a single element. Like, you being a solar warlock with a solar gun and a solar heavy to just solar kills, do this, and solar abilities power your solar weapons to power your solar kills to into build. There's all this like flow between a single element, but then every single difficulty at the highest tier has match game, and I'm not following the logic there. I'm not understanding the it's almost like the two departments aren't quite talking to each other. Like, the department of debuffs and terrain and what it strikes and playlist stuff isn't talking to the guys that are doing the build crafting, or there's some sort of disconnect there. Or maybe this is just a system that will get revamped once we have all the new subclasses. So once we have Arc 3.0 next season. Like I'm a huge Arc fan. I'm an electronic engineer. That's what I went to college for. That's what I did in the military. I love electricity. That's what my dad did for 30 years. I love electricity. So Arc being last to me is kind of like this giant waiting game. So yeah, no, the biggest honestly my biggest qualm is match game. Out of the entire Destiny universe, the one thing that I can point out and go, I hate that match game.
Yeah.
But then for Myth, for this compliment sandwich too, I'm trying to think of another good one to end on. I like raids. No, I actually like. I have a hard time with people, and so to be able to have something like Destiny that I can bond with somebody else with over, and have a mutual, and an in-depth conversation like what Myth and I have on these episodes, to be able to find people like Myth or any of the rest of our clan members, Big Scotty, Tina Italiano, Eclipse, Keyston, all those guys, Little Stinky. Yeah, no, I love being able to talk shop about something that I love, and for somebody to have that same level of not dedication or devotion, but understanding, I guess, of that thing, and be able to bounce ideas and bounce questions off of, and theories and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. But so as you can tell, we do have a lot of thoughts about the different aspects of the game, both positive and negative. But we're gonna try and keep this particular podcast to lore
under
only.
2 hours. Oh yes, it's a lore only.
Right, to lore only. That was kind of our main thing, because you start inviting some other difficulties when we start getting into gameplay mechanics and those kinds of things, and that's a discussion that there are many of other content creators out there that are much more well informed and have been doing it for a long time, that tackle that a little better than we will.
Hashtag Fallout Plays, hashtag Astacross, hashtag Kimmy Cakes, hashtag Cool Guy, hashtag Kuj.
Yeah, all of those.
Just to name a few.
All of those and many more. So yeah, but yeah, so that's it as far as shout outs go.
All right, well, sweet. From all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.